NewsChannel 5 Network. This is OpenLine.
Hello everyone, welcome to OpenLine. Good show tonight. Chance for you to call in and talk one-on-one with Mayor David Briley. And I want to thank the mayor. Mayor, thank you for being here.
Right. Glad to be here.
Thank you for coming on, answering questions from me, answering questions from callers. There's been a lot going on. I want to start with the trees. We'll move on from there. When did you learn that this NFL stage was going to require cutting down trees at Riverfront Park?
I can't recall if I even knew about it before Saturday. I'm sure there have been some conversations about it, but I think the planning for the NFL draft had been going on for some months, and the city had been in conversations with the Parks Department and with all the parties involved. And I think the Parks Department and the arborists there did not see the loss of the trees there as being a significant part of the park. I think he actually saw it as an opportunity to improve the way they looked, because the cherry trees that were down there, I think, were, in his opinion, at least I think he said, could stand some improvement, that they weren't all the same size and the same look. And so but Saturday morning, I guess last Saturday, I was driving to Knoxville for a little while and got a good sense that folks didn't share his perception of it. So after we've had a chance for me to get back from Knoxville and think through exactly the public concerns about it, we announced that we would relocate the trees instead of bringing them down. Ultimately, we ended up with 10 trees being relocated, actually on site there. It's already been done. And there'll be hundreds of additional cherry trees planted in Nashville as a result of the draft down there. Just so people know, I know there were a lot of concerns about, why don't you just move the stage? And so I think it's important for people to know this is not your typical stage. It's 100 feet deep. It's, I think, 70 feet tall, and it's about 400 feet wide. It is a big, big endeavor. And you know, downtown is a great tourist attraction for people from all around the world, and we're confident that the draft is going to be a good event for Nashville in the long run, to help keep promoting our tourist industry and make Nashville an even stronger place for people to come and visit. I certainly I share people's sense that we don't want some big corporation to come into Nashville and tell us what to do. And so I think we were pretty deliberate about engaging the public, especially downtown. We had unprecedented meetings with the downtown businesses. We met on many occasions with them. I personally went to meetings with downtown businesses to talk about the consequences of the draft. I've met with many downtown businesses one-on-one to talk about the draft. And the tree part, I think, is something we learned a lesson on, and we've tried to address the consequences of it. And going forward, the city will be much more conscientious when it comes to this particular issue.
Because it seems to me the debate is bigger than trees.
Sure.
Has our city somehow lost part of its soul? You know, are we selling ourselves to the highest bidder? And it gets bigger than this issue of the trees, which certainly upset a lot of people, but it's this big outside entity coming in, and it's who are we building this downtown city for if we're willing to just cut down trees to put up a stage?
Sure, I think that's right. I think that's what really sparked people's concern. And so I think going forward, we're going to have to be more thoughtful about that as a community. But we have more than 12 million, I think 14 million people coming to the corner of 5th and Broad every year right now. And so downtown has become a very intense location for tourism. And we're going to have to be measured about how we let that proceed. But I think we also have to be conscious about the fact that it brings a lot of tax revenue to our town. A lot of people work in that industry, and And so as we move forward, we're going to make sure that we're thoughtful and communicative, and make sure that we're very deliberate when it comes to these kind of decisions. We've already started thinking a little bit about Riverfront Park going forward after this event, and we're certainly committed to making sure we get the cherry trees back there if that's the best result. But we may actually want to change and add additional trees or reconfigure the kinds of trees we have down there to create more shade. But we're definitely going to have a friendly tree-lined street down there in the future.
I mean, it's interesting to hear some of the backstory. You were driving to Knoxville and this kind of exploded. Was someone on the line with the NFL and say, look what's going on here? Can we adjust this stage? Can we save these trees? I mean, what was going on behind the scenes there?
Sure. Virtually immediately, it was an all-hands-on-deck approach, and we started talking to the CVC and to the Parks Department and to the NFL about exactly where we were on it, what could be done to avoid it, and I think the CVC has sort of done a little bit of a mea culpa about how we got to where we were. But I think everybody took it extremely seriously. I turned around and drove back from Knoxville to focus on it, and we certainly appreciate the folks' sincere concern about this particular issue, and moving forward we're going to be even more conscientious about the impact of tourism and development on folks who live and work downtown.
And lastly on that, if there are people, and we may get callers who say, yeah, we have lost our way, and there are people that are angry at the NFL, and I know you don't want that to be the case, but if there are people that say we've lost our way, what do you say?
Well, Nashville's for the last 30 years, 40 years, been trying to build a brand in tourism, and we have done that probably more successfully than anybody could have imagined at the beginning. Our airport is growing like crazy, and that is the Nashville way. Tourism has been part of our enterprise here for some time, and we're going to be a growing city. And it's incumbent upon me to make sure we're thinking about the consequences of these things going forward, and to do everything I can to protect the heart and soul of the city as we move forward. But part of that heart and soul is the fact that we are known for country music, and the draft is going to be an event where for the first time music and the draft are sort of integrated on a music front. I think people around the world, the 40+ million people who see the draft, are going to see Nashville in a great way, and that's an important part of the city as well.
Something else that happened just recently, you gave a speech last week about metro schools. You say you're going to take a leading role in the future direction of metro schools. Why did you feel the need to give that speech at that time last week?
Well, our city depends as much on public education for its long-term success as it depends on anything. And the Board of Education at this point is at a point where the fundamental operation of the district is on the precipice, I think, of failure in some respects. And so my current role as mayor is I send money there. That is basically it. And I have a bully pulpit. And so I felt like it was important for the leader of the city to stand up and say enough is enough. And we are counting on the adults at MNPS to come together, to focus on that MNPS enterprise, to set aside whatever differences they have on a policy matter or on a personal matter, and try and get just the basic function of the system working on a consistent basis without any without the kind of chaos and discord that we've had in the past. I think at that point in time, Dr. Joseph had already indicated that he did not intend to stay. So I want to set us on a new path as a community to make sure that the district is headed in a positive direction. And I'm willing to put my shoulder to the wheel. I know I said I was going to be involved. It's not my sense that I'm the only person who can do it, but it is my sense that I am the only person in a position, I think, as the mayor of the city who has the purse strings and can require some improvements in the district as we get more money to schools in the coming years.
You said you will be more active in the district's operation, finances, and human resources. Yet the charter does limit what a mayor can do. So how does that work? How will you be more active when there are these limits? How does that work?
Well, I think it's going to be a negotiation, really, between the board and my office as we talk about additional funding going forward. I don't want necessarily to be involved in the day-to-day decision making. In fact, I don't want to be involved in the day-to-day decision making in any of those areas. But what I wanted to see is a concrete plan for improvements in all of those areas that is agreed upon between myself and the board as we send more money. What is your plan to improve the operation of the Human Resources Department? How are you going to look closely at your operations and your resources to make sure you're using them as effectively as possible? And it needs to be something in writing so that we can all look back on it and say, this is what we agreed to, and this is what is happening to improve the quality and success of our public school system.
And you said you made the speech at that moment because things are a mess, and you don't have to really look too hard to see it's not going well. It's kind of a mess. Where do you put the blame for that? Is it the school board or is it Dr. Joseph?
It's on all of us, I think, is what I said in the speech, and I live by that. It's on me. It's on the board. It's on every business in town. It's on all of us. We all have an obligation, I think, to try and get this fixed. Now, it makes no sense, I think, to point fingers about who made a mistake in the past. And my job as mayor is to point us in a direction in the future where we're going to see improvements in the district. But in order to do that, some of the conduct at the board has to stop. And you know, social media has its role in our culture, but I wish that we could pull back a little bit from that and talk more civilly and more openly to each other at maybe the next board meeting instead of communicating on Twitter and on Facebook, because I think on both sides of the equation in the last few weeks you've seen some unfortunate communications that have really made our situation at MNPS worse.
So there's going to be a meeting coming up April 9th. In your opinion, what should the board do at that meeting in regard to Dr. Joseph? Should they remove him? Should they buy out his contract? Should they let him stay on till his contract is over? What do you think they should do?
Well, I've heard that they are trying to work towards a mutually agreed upon resolution, and so I think I don't want to interrupt those discussions by putting my opinion into the mix. I want them to do their best to reach a conclusion that they all can agree to and start a new day at MNPS where they've agreed to something and they can move forward together. It's critical to the 80,000+ students at MNPS that the adults in the room do everything they can to protect the MNPS enterprise. And sometimes that's going to mean you have to agree to disagree and move on. And that's what I'd like to see more of there in the coming weeks and months.
And the school board, its budget committee, recently voted, I think it was last night, to ask Metro, which budget, for a $77 million increase to fund some noble things, teacher pay raises of 10% and several other things. We have budget problems in Metro. Is that forthcoming? Are you going to be able to recommend in the next budget a $77 million increase for schools?
Well, I haven't seen their increase yet, or their request for an increase yet, and we'll look at it when it comes. We will do everything we can to get additional revenue to MNPS, and I can't say exactly how much it's going to be at this point in time. I'm frankly as much concerned about how they're going to run their enterprise as I am about how much money they are going to get. And so I think I am committed to building community support for public education and getting us to a point as a city where we are adequately funding it and taking care of the teachers in the way that I think everybody in Nashville wants to. Whether or not it'll all happen in 1 year or over a period of years, I think the budget is still to be determined in that respect.
But it sounds like you're saying if things don't improve, you're not going to be giving them that kind of money. I mean, you're saying you could withhold other money.
Well, I mean, this is one of the awkward parts of being mayor. The only real leverage I have, or the easiest leverage I have, is to keep money out of MNPS. And the people who suffer the most in that regard are the children and the teachers. And so I'm never going to make that decision. We are going to push incredibly hard to get the district going in a good direction and use every tool we have available to us to make sure that is taking place. And I'm optimistic, although maybe not confident yet, that the district will come together, that the board will come together. We can sort of start to build anew and build more community support for public education by demonstrating that the board can operate effectively in a manner that we all want to see.
And then one more budget question, then we'll open up the phones here. So you've said you're going to have a 3% pay raise for Metro employees next year in the next budget. You've announced a big affordable housing initiative, $500 million over several years. How are we going to be able to pay for all this? You're not proposing a property tax increase. So why last year did we have so little money? And then schools are going to come back and ask for more money. They're asking for $77 million. They'll at least ask for 31. They need more money. How are we going to pay for all this when we couldn't pay for it last year?
Well, last year we had a series of things that happened that are not happening again this year. We had set the property tax rate too low last year. We thought there would be a reduction in general hospital funding. We had an increase in debt service requirements. We lost money from the state. And so you add all those things together, and last year we really had no revenue growth in the budget. This year we will have revenue growth. We'll have increased property taxes. We'll have increased sales taxes. The amount from General Hospital is requesting is going down slightly. We're optimistic that we'll either get the same or more money from M&PS. And so we do have an increase in debt service this year, which is unfortunate, but you add all that together and we have growth this year. You would expect that, right? You know, you see the cranes, you would expect growth. Last year was really anomalous, and this year we're going to see growth. Next year we'll see growth as well. And over time, every year we'll have to look and say exactly how much growth are we going to have. Is it going to allow us to do the things that we need to do as a city in terms of housing and education and making sure we have the proper infrastructure and getting pay raises to our police and firefighters and employees and teachers. But this year we're in a position where we can do something with the growth inside the system itself.
Well, that kind of sets the table. So now we'll open up the phones. There, if you want to call in, there's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Call in if you have a question for the mayor. We'll take a break. Be back right after this.